أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. Surah Takwir, verses number 22 onwards. وما صاحبكم بمجنون ولقد رآه بالأفق المبين وما هو على الغيب بضنين وما هو بقول شيطان رجيم فأين تذهبون إن هو إلا ذكر للعالمين. And your companion is not crazy. Certainly he saw him on the manifest horizon, and he is not miserly concerning the unseen, and it is not the speech of an outcast, shaitan. So where are you going? These are the concluding verses of Surah Takwir, and in it there are arguments about the authority of the Prophet, peace be on him. If you remember last week, we discussed about verses which gave a picture of Jibreel, of him being Rasulun Kareem, a noble messenger, and being the Quwwatin inda dhil arsh makin, powerful and eminent with the Lord of the throne, and being Muta'in Thamma Amin, one who's heard and trustworthy as well. And then after giving all these descriptions or giving features of Jibreel, it mentions وَمَا صَاحِبُكُمْ بِمَجْنُونَ. Your companion is not a majnoon, is not someone who's either majnoon means someone who's hit by jinn, or someone whose intellect is hidden in the sense that he cannot use his intellect. So not crazy, not someone hit by jinn. Now, the reason why Jibreel is described here rather than the Prophet, here we don't have any description of the Prophet, peace be on him, as the source of the Quran, but we have a description of Jibreel as the source of revelation, because of course what was doubted very much by kuffar then and later on, of course, during the centuries, was that what is the source of this revelation? Who is the source? Where does this revelation come from? And of course, even nowadays, such discussions are quite prevalent about the source from which the Prophet, peace be on him, had his revelation. In those days, of course, what was important was to describe the source as an angel who's trusted by God, who, of course, is not created by imagination of the Prophet, peace be on him, as some people said, and as some people during the history have said, and also the description of this angel, an angel which is, of course, acting only on the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is powerful, who is full of intellect and understanding, and of course an angel which is in constant contact with the Prophet, peace be on him. Now, about this verse, وَمَا صَاحِبُكُمْ بِمَجْنُونَ, and your companion is not a majnoon. After describing all those features of Jibreel, then it says, well, you can now judge about your friend who has brought you these revelations, whether he is a majnoon or he is bringing it from that very, very powerful source. Two meanings could be, as I said, two meanings could be imagined for majnoon here. Majnoon is, of course, from the root jannah, and jannah is something which is hidden, or something which hides. And majnoon is someone whose intellect is hidden, in a sense that we do not see the the outcomes of intellect or the actions which are performed by him is not something which could be attributed to an intelligence or to a type of intellect, and therefore he's majnoon. The other meaning would be someone who is hit by jinn, either in the sense that the jinn is controlling and possessing him, or someone who is, in a sense, controlled by jinn in what he does and in what he says. And probably this meaning is better going here, that the source of this revelation is not jinn, as, of course, is the source of some of the sorcerers or kahens, which we will come to that later on. Why the word sahibukum is used here, your companion, is because, of course, Prophet was someone who was known for a long time among these people to whom he brought revelation. There was not the slightest sign that this man was insane, not the slightest sign that this man was saying anything irrational, anything unintelligible. And suddenly when he brought this revelation, everyone started to say that you are mad or you are hit by jinn or something like that. So the word sahibukum means that you can judge this man yourself. You have lived with him for several years, for a long time, and you can judge whether he is a majnoon or not. If for the past 40 years you haven't seen anything irrational, you haven't heard anything irrational from him, you haven't seen anything which is against the rules of intellect from him, then why suddenly, after bringing these very, very rational revelation to you, you say that he is majnoon? It's like the verse in Surah Al-Mu'minun, which says, أَمْ لَمْ يَعْرِفُوا رَسُولَهُمْ فَهُمْ لَهُ مُنْكَرُونَ. Do they not know their messenger? And that's why they are denying him. Has he come from another city? Has he come from another country? And they say, well, we don't know about his past. We don't know what type of life or what type of understanding he has had in the past, and therefore they are denying it. Well, it is not the case. He has lived among you. He has been with you. You know him for a long time. أَمْ لَمْ يَعْرِفُوا رَسُولَهُمْ فَهُمْ لَهُ مُنْكَرُونَ أَمْ يَقُولُونَ بِهِ جِنَّةً. Or they say, suddenly he is hit by a sort of madness. بَلْ جَاءَهُمْ بِالْحَقِّ. But you can see what he's saying is not like saying he's of a mad person. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَهُمْ لِلْحَقِّ كَارِهُونَ. The reason they deny him is because they are reluctant to hear haqq. They don't like to hear haqq. So, وَمَا صَاحِبُكُمْ بِمَجْنُونَ. This is from that very, very sublime source, which is Jibreel. It is not because this man is crazy or mad or hit by jinn or some whatever. And this man has a very good understanding of that source. This man is someone who realizes the source very well. وَلَقَدْ رَآهُ بِالْأُفُقِ الْمُبِينِ. Certainly he saw him on the manifest horizon. Now, this Ufuq al-Mubin is mentioned twice in the Quran. Once here, that the Prophet, peace be on him, saw him. Of course, this Ra'ahu, this him goes back to Jibreel. Prophet saw Jibreel on Ufuq al-Mubin. وَرَقَدْ رَآهُ بِالْأُفُقِ الْمُبِينِ. Once here, the other one is in Surah Najm, where the verse talks about the 2 times where Prophet, peace be on him, saw Jibreel. وَالنَّجْمِ إِذَا هَوَى مَا ضَلَّ صَاحِبُكُمْ وَمَا غَوَى وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَى أَلَّمَهُ شَدِيدُ الْقُوَى. The very, very powerful being has taught him this, which is again Jibreel, another set of verses which just describe Jibreel. Allamahu shadidul qawa dhu mirratin. A being which is full of intelligence. This is how, of course, Jibreel is described, because if Prophet himself is not majnoon, is a rational person, then the source should be something which doesn't have any rationality for those who do not accept this. And that's why Jibreel is all the time being described as some being which is full of intelligence. ذو مرة فاستوى وهو بالأفق الأعلى. He stood up while Prophet was seeing him in al-ufuq al-a'la. ثم دنا فتدلى فكان قاب قوسين أو أدنى. Now, this al-ufuq al-mubin here, of course, is something which has been discussed among exegetes. What does it mean by ufuq al-mubin? The clear horizon, or ufuq al-a'la, the higher horizon? It should be something which denotes to not human horizon, a horizon which is suitable for angels rather than for human beings. And that's why Angel Jibreel could have been seen there in that form which Prophet saw him. We might say in his original form, but original form is something which might not exist at all in physical sense. The original form cannot come to the vision of anyone. Therefore, in a sort of form, which of course is between this world and between the world of the angels. And then, of course, in other instances, Jibreel came to the Prophet as form of a human being. This is why in Surah Najm, it's mentioned that twice Prophet saw Jibreel in that form, in a form which is in Ufuq al-A'la, probably the highest horizon of this world, and the lowest horizon, which could be the horizon of an angel, somehow a border between this world and the world of the angels. Prophet saw Jibreel there. And of course, that form was quite different from what usually Prophet used to see Jibreel. And of course, the other time which Prophet saw Jibreel might not have been in the same as the way he saw him in Ufuq al-A'la, because in there, in Surah Najm again, it says that وَلَقَدْ رَآهُ مَرَّةً أُخْرَى, or نَزْلَةً أُخْرَى وَلَقَدْ رَآهُ نَزْلَةً أُخْرَى. Nazla means one other descent of Jibreel, نَزْلَةً أُخْرَى. But that was in the Sidratul Muntaha. It was not bil Ufuq al-A'la. It was where Sidratul Muntaha is, in the Jannatul Ma'wa. In these two places, Prophet saw him in that sense. Now, why this is mentioned here? Because Prophet usually used to see Jibreel in form of a human being, and that could have been an illusion. That could have been a sort of vision which might people object that, well, you are seeing a man, you think that this is a messenger from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But here is emphasized that no, he has seen this in, of course, another form. He has seen Jibreel. Whenever he has a vision of Jibreel, even in the form of a human being, he realizes without any doubt that this is him. I think it's important to mention one illusion which has found way in books of tradition about the first revelation of the Prophet when he saw Jibreel, because it is mentioned in very credible books of Ahlus Sunnah, and it is a somehow commonplace knowledge of all Muslims about the first instance of revelation, that when Prophet, peace be on him, saw Jibreel in the first instance, he did not recognize that this is the angel of revelation. He thought that this is a shaitan coming. He thought that he's possessed by jinn. He was terrified. He came back trembling and asking Khadija, of course, to cover him with a blanket, and therefore, Ya ayyuhal muzammil, or Ya ayyuhal muddathir. And he was not assured, or he was not confident that he had seen the angel of revelation until Khadija, peace be on her, took him to his uncle, to his cousin, Waraqat ibn Nawfal, and he who was a Christian and had a knowledge of angels, not encountering angels, had a knowledge of angels, reassured the Prophet that what you have seen is not a jinn, what you have experienced is not possession by jinn, but it is the angel of revelation, it is Jibreel whom you have seen. Now, this certainly could not be acceptable, although, as I said, it is reported in very credible books of Ahlul Sunnah, and certainly in Shiite traditions, the beginning of revelation is pictured in a quite different way, not with this type of hesitation and doubt and fear. If this is the case, if Prophet, upon seeing Jibreel on Ufuq al-A'la or in Ufuq al-Mubin, not recognizing him, not knowing that this is the angel of revelation, and he is only reassured of that by being informed through another person who himself had not experienced revelation, who himself had not have any encounter with an angel of revelation, and of course had written things in the books, then the whole issue of revelation would go under a big question. If this was the case, why not later events or later revelations of Jibreel to him would have been again a doubtful issue, would be under question as well. And it somehow takes the authority of the Quran and authority of the Prophet to rely on a person, Waraqat ibn Nawfal, about whom we don't know much, who is an unknown person in the history, and who actually even telling the Prophet that, yes, this is the angel of revelation, you have seen something which the previous prophets have seen, he himself did not believe in him. And he did not, even at the time when Prophet did reveal his message, he was not one of those who confessed faith in him. So that story should be a fake story. And here when he says, وَلَقَدْ رَآهُ بِالْأُفُقِ الْمُبِينِ, certainly doesn't mean that, yes, he saw Jibreel in Ufuq al-Mubin, but he did not recognize him. But he thought that he's a jinn, or he thought that he's a shaitan, and he thought that he's possessed by a jinn. It makes the whole picture quite unreasonable, irrational, and of course puts as I said, a big question mark on the whole issue of revelation. So we certainly do not accept that account of the beginning of revelation as Prophet hesitating about what he was receiving. And here, of course, there is a very categorical statement that he really saw him. And when he says he saw him, it means that he saw him and he recognized him in Ufuq al-Mubin. And in what he saw and what he received, he is not a miserly person who would not like to give you his source of knowledge, who would not like to give you whatever he has received from him, like some sorcerers, kahins, who of course receive things from jinn, but of course they never revealed what is their source. They never taught others how they receive this, and of course they only mentioned things which were related to the question of a person, not what they had received from that source. So this man is not someone who is miserly about the unseen. Whatever he receives, he comes and tells it to you. وَمَا هُوَ عَلَى الْغَيْبِ بِضَنِينَ. Now, one other issue which always have been a question, and certainly if we go through the history of Orientalism, those who have studied the life of the Prophet, peace be on him, and have put forward theories, of course those who do not believe in him, but put forward theories about how did he receive these verses, or how did he make it up, or how did he receive it if he did not make it up and he was sincere, as it has been a trend during the past century, that many Orientalists said that, no, Muhammad was a sincere man, he was an honest man, but the point is, the source which gave him all these things was something which was confused for him. It was not an angel, it was not, of course, God. It was a source which somehow suggested things to him which was unknown. It was either coming from the inner part of his soul as a man who felt a mission, and therefore he was saying all these things as the word of God, or he was somehow in contact with some jinn or something like that. Now, this was something which was the most powerful argument of the kuffar of Quraysh as well. Because these type of revelations or revelation-like issues were very common on those days. There were kahins who were in contact with jinn or shayateen, and they brought news of the unseen for them. And that's why whenever a person wanted to know about their future, they went to these sorcerers, they asked them. Some of them, of course, were quite charlatans. They told lies, but some of them had some sort of contact with those creatures in this world who had some knowledge about the future, and they informed them. And this was something which was confused by the mission of the Prophet, saying that, well, probably you received this from a shaitan or from a jinn. Shaitan, ma huwa biqawli shaitanin rajim, is not only Iblis, different jinns who were shayateen, which are mentioned in the Quran as well. وَحَفِظْنَاهَا مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْطَانٍ رَجِيمٍ. We have protected the heavens from every shaitan who is driven away from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's not only Iblis, there were many others. And what came to mind immediately was that this is a contact with these sorts of creatures, evil creatures, and Prophet receives that from a shaitan and rajim. Of course, this died down gradually, because the way Prophet spoke, the content of this revelation was completely different from the way those sorcerers spoke and the content of what they said. They never talked about belief, faith, hereafter, or these things. They just talked about calamities which are coming, the catastrophes which were just imminent, the issues about the relevant to life of a person who asked them about it, of course they asked money for it. This man was not like that. None of these features did match the way these sorcerers were working. Therefore, gradually, they decided that no, this is not something like that. And that's why in Surah Qalam, where we have this idea of Walid ibn Mughayra giving his theory about the Prophet. When the mushrikun went to him and they said, we have to put our words together, we have to say one thing about this man, because there are different theories here among ourselves. Even our intellectuals differ about what is the source of his revelation. Some say that it is he is a shair, some say he is a kahin, some say he is majnoon, and therefore people do not listen to us. They say, you even don't know who he is, and he claims that he's a prophet, so let's put our words together, you tell us what he is. And of course, Walid ibn Mughayra visited the Prophet and asked him to recite some of the verses of the Quran for him. The story is long, I just cut it short. And when Prophet recited those verses of the Quran from the beginning of Surah Fussilat, Walid ibn Mughayra started to shake and shiver and went back home. He fell ill for 3 days, and people thought that he had become a Muslim, that he converted. Rumors went into around Mecca that Walid ibn Mughayra, who was the head of all intellectuals in Mecca, who was the most expert man in literature and in poetry, he has converted to Islam. So the prominent people of Mecca went to his house, visiting him while he was ill, and they said, you have disappointed us. We sent you to figure out what we have to say about this man, and now you yourself has converted to Islam. And he said, no, this is a rumor, I have not converted to Islam. I was thinking through all these days, what is the best description of what this man brings? And the Quran describes it, إِنَّهُ فَكَّرَ وَقَدَّرَ فَقُتِلَ كَيْفَ قَدَّرَ ثُمَّ قُتِلَ كَيْفَ قَدَّرَ. He thought, he measured, may God kill him, how did he measure? May God kill him, how did he measure? ثُمَّ نَظَرَ, again he thought and studied what should be said about this. ثُمَّ عَبَسَ وَبَسَرَ, then he frowned, he became angry that he could not figure it out. ثُمَّ أَدْبَرَ وَاسْتَكْبَرَ, he turned away and was hit by his arrogance. فَقَالَ إِنْ هَذَا إِلَّا سِحْرٌ يُؤْثَرُ. This is magic. This is neither sorcery, this is neither poetry, it is magic, because it mesmerizes you. When he went and listened to the Prophet, he could not stop shivering, and he went back home just thinking about what he had heard. إِنْ هَذَا إِلَّا سِحْرٌ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا سِحْرٌ يُؤْثَرُ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا قَوْلُ الْبَشَرِ. This is not revelation. This is not the word of jinn. This is not the word of those creatures who are in contact with sorcerers. It is his own word, but it's magic. It mesmerizes, it puts you under a spell, and therefore these people convert. So this idea of Prophet being in touch with shayateen gradually lost its weight, even at the beginning. But it was very powerful. It is mentioned in many different surahs. For example, in Surah Shu'ara, وَمَا تَنَزَّلَتْ بِهِ الشَّيَاطِينَ. Shayateen has not brought this down to the Prophet. He's not a sorcerer in touch with those people. وَمَا يَنْبَغِي لَهُ وَمَا يَسْتَطِعُونَ. Of course, those shayateen who bring news for their partners or cohorts cannot bring such a revelation, can never bring such a news, can never give such a message. So, وَمَا هُوَ بِقَوْلِ شَيْطَانٍ رَجِيمٍ فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ. Now, if this is the case, if the source is clear, if this is not the word of a sorcerer, if your companion, your friend is not a majnoon, so where are you heading to? Why don't you come and listen? Why don't you take this serious? إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا ذِكْرٌ لِلْعَالَمِينَ. This is only a reminder for Alameen, for the whole world. Now, of course, if this is a reminder for the whole world, why not are they reminded by it? If this reminder comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if the source is so powerful, why are they not reminded by it if it is a reminder? Of course, not for all of them. إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا ذِكْرٌ لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Not for all of them, but لِمَنْ شَاءَ مِنْكُمْ أَنْ يَسْتَقِيمُ. For those of you who wish to be steadfast, for those of you who wish to be on the right path. Again, this is reiterated once and again in the Quran, that not everyone can benefit from this. It's only muttaqun. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Only muttaqun. Only those who listen, and only those who believe. And تُسْمِعُ إِلَّا مَنْ يُؤْمِنُ بِآيَاتِنَا. You can only make those who believe in our signs to hear you. Otherwise, others would not hear you, cannot listen to you. And this is also ذِكْرٌ لِلْعَالَمِينَ لِمَنْ شَاءَ مِنْكُمْ أَنْ يَسْتَقِيمُ. For those of you who wish to be steadfast. Now, this is very interesting, because people who were or who claim to be in touch with the supernatural world, with some beings who are beyond our senses and our sensible experience, they had many different reasons and many different motives for it. Usually, of course, they used to take money for revealing what they had received from those beings with whom they were in touch. And also, they really did not have any mission. They were just people being in touch, giving different people advice, talking about their future, talking about different issues, which just show that they have some sort of extraordinary gift or feeling or sensation or understanding different from other people. There was no mission in it. While this one was completely different, there was a very, very clear mission, and it claimed to be a reminder for everyone. It was not just directed at a specific type of people. It was a reminder for everyone. Of course, as I said, if it's a reminder for everyone, why not everyone would benefit from it? Because it only can benefit those who really want to be steadfast, want to be on the right path. Now, the last verse is, of course, a very difficult verse, something which has given fuel to this controversy of people who believed in predestination and people who believed in free will, the Ash'arites and Mu'tazilis. These type of verses, which are not, of course, few in the Quran, have given them fuel to continuously discuss and debate on the issue. So, إن هو إلا ذكر للعالمين لمن شاء منكم أن يستقيم, for those of you who wish to be steadfast, وما تشاءون إلا أن يشاء الله رب العالمين. But you do not wish unless it is wished by Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Now, here everything becomes very difficult. This is a reminder for those of you who wish to be steadfast. But you cannot wish to be steadfast unless Allah wishes that you wish to be steadfast. Your will is controlled by His will. You cannot wish anything until and unless He wills it. And if this is the case, then again the argument comes, so what's the point? If He wishes us to be good, then what's the point of the message? What's the point of sending a messenger? And what's the point of reward and punishment? He wishes whoever wants to be good to be good. He wishes whoever wants to be evil. Now, the very stupidity of the whole concept make us to think that, well, it might not mean what we understand at the face of it, that if only those of you who wish to be steadfast can be reminded, and of course only those who Allah wishes to wish to be steadfast can wish to be steadfast and can be reminded by this. If this is so unreasonable an argument, then there should be another meaning for this. Certainly the Prophet who mentioned this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who revealed this to the Prophet, those people who heard it from the Prophet, they did not think that this is unreasonable. So what's the catch? Where is the point that we might have lost? Now the point is what, of course, those people who believe in free will would put forward, which makes it more reasonable, and of course something which has been mentioned in a very concise way, which needs explanation by our A'imma alayhimus salam, that you do not live as people of free will completely, and you do not live as people who are forced to do things completely. You stand somewhere in between. لا جبر ولا تفويض ولا بل أمر بين الأمرين. You are living somewhere between predetermination and between your free choice. You cannot determine everything, you cannot make all choices that you want, and also you are not forced to do things. So, مَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ comes back to many of those verses that Allah guides whoever He wishes and misguides whoever He wishes. You cannot wish to be good unless you have some potentials for it, unless you have a sort of history which would allow you to be good. You cannot suddenly come out of an evil life and say, now I want to be good. Although you have lots of, say for example, blood on your hand, you had committed all sorts of evil, and suddenly you come and say, I want to be good. It's not possible. Even if you want to be good, you gradually your will would take you to less and less and less evil wishes and wills, until then you start to wish and will good things, benign things, and then you become really good. Our will, our wish, our ambitions are in a way formed, originated by who we are and what we do. That's what the verse wants to say, is that it is not the case that whoever wishes can be good. Because, for example, Abu Lahab could have come and said to the Prophet, I want to be good. لَمَنْ شَاءَ مِنْكُمْ أَنْ يَسْتَقِيمُ, whoever who wants to be steadfast, I want to be steadfast, so why this does not remind me of anything? No, you cannot wish to be steadfast so long as you are continuing with your evil deeds. You have to put aside your evil deeds, and then you can wish to be steadfast. This intention of the heart is something which is given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a tawfiq. مَا تَشَاءُونَ أَلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. There is this very beautiful tradition that says whoever Allah wishes to guide would change the origin of his wish and likes and dislikes. Why some of us like worldly pleasures very much, some of us don't like it, like on the other hand what comes after this world. It doesn't come all of a sudden. It's through some continuous worship, continuous attention to God, that some people suddenly feel that they don't like pleasures of this world very much. They love God more than things which are in this world. The origin of will and wish changes in a way towards something which is the otherworldly, not this worldly. On the contrary, you will see some people, whatever you tell them, however you remind them, they again come to money, to pleasure, to things which are related to this world, because the origin of their will and wish is corrupt. And that origin is something which is granted to you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is due to your own effort. So, وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. You do not wish unless it is wished by Allah. Tells us in a way that, of course, you have free will, but it's not the case that your free will is completely in your hands. First of all, you have free will because Allah has willed it that you have free will. If you can wish, if you can have will, it's because Allah has wanted you to do this. And secondly, you cannot wish or will anything you want. It is determined by Him as well, due to what you have done. And that's the meaning of وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يُضِلُّ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. He guides whoever He wishes, and He misguides whoever He wishes. So this is the last verse of this surah, and inshallah we start with Surah Al-Infitar next week. وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ وَآلِهِ الطَّاهِرِينَ.
Thank you very much. We'll start with question and answers. Are there any questions on the ladies' side?
Alaikum Shaykh. I think this business of the jinn وَمَا صَاحِبُكُمْ بِمَجْنُونٍ, it came from the beginning, because in the beginning all the messages, the jinn used to bring some of these messages to the people on earth, but until the birth of the Prophet ﷺ, it's all stopped, because وَكُنَّا نَقْعُدُ مِنْهَا مَقَاعِدَ لِلسَّمْعِ فَمَنِ اسْتَمِعَ الْآنَ يَجِدْ لَهُ شِهَابًا رَصَدًا. So when the Prophet was born, Islam was given this privilege of blackout, news blackout. Nobody was allowed to bring any news to earth. Before that, not the shaitan, the jinn themselves, they used to bring that. سَخَّرَ لَكُمُ الْجِنَّ. So they used to bring this knowledge to us, and that's when the birth of Islam came. So all of it stopped. Well, same thing. وَجَعَلْنَا فِيهَا مَصَابِيحَ وَجَعَلْنَاهَا رُجُومًا لِلشَّيَاطِينِ. Same thing and there. But my point of it, it's a nagging point, which it comes to the whole of these gathering. It's Imam Hussein alayhi salam says the Quran أنزل على أربعة على العبارة والإشارة واللطائف والحقائق. How do you move yourself, to sort of progress from the beginning of being just a normal person to being one of the little bit of privilege, the khawas ones? Is this sort of with more reading of the Quran, or is this business وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَنْ يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ? That's it, you got to accept it. As the Prophet, they told, in the Jahiliyyah, they told Abu Lahab, if you go and tell the Prophet that you are a believer and you believe in Islam, even if it's not true, the Prophet will be a liar. And the Abu Lahab would not do it, full stop. He said, I would not do it. They told him, just lie to him and go and say to him, listen, I believe in you. He said, no, I would not do it. He told him, if you just go and say that, it will prove him false. He says, no, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So where do we go from there?
Well, of course, as you mentioned this hadith, al-ibaratu lil-awam wal-isharatu lil-khawas wal-lataifu lil-awliya wal-haqa'u lil-anbiya. Now, if we want the haqa'iq, we have to be anbiya. We cannot do that. We can't be prophets. If we want the isharat, we have to become from khawas and to become from the elect, so to speak. Khawas, the elect, and awliya are friends of God. If we want the lataif of the Quran, the subtle meanings of the Quran, we have to become from awliya. It doesn't come through constant reading or going to tafsir, reading all tafasir, that we think that then by reading all tafasir we can get those subtle meanings of the Quran. Or we could get the isharat, the sort of indications towards deeper meanings, if we are not from the elect. It doesn't come from reciting, it doesn't come from reading tafsir. We have to try to make ourselves to enter into that circle of the elect so that we could get those indications towards deeper meanings. And we have to try to get ourselves into that circle of awliya to get those lata'if, the subtle meanings of the Quran. And to get into the circle of the elect, well, has its own procedure. You have to completely leave the love for this world. You have to turn towards akhirah. Allahumma inni as'aluka tajafiya an dar al-ghurur wal inabata ila dar al-khulud. Going back completely, turning your attention to dar al-khulud, then you gradually become from the elect. And that, of course, has its own features. You do more ibadah, you do all mustahabbat, not all mustahabbat, of course, as much as is in your power. You avoid from makruhat, you avoid from what ordinary mu'minun do. These are the things that gradually would take us into the circle of khawas, the elect. And of course, entering the circle of awliya is even more difficult, because then, of course, they love whatever is in their heart should be emptied completely, evacuated in a sense, and filled with the love of God so that they become from awliya. And then, of course, when you have changed your nature, the qualities by which you live, then when you look at these, certainly you see different things in it. So it is not something which comes from constant reading or study of tafsir. It is something internal. We have to change the heart to detect those deeper meanings, rather than doing just a tedious type of a study. It's just like experience of God. If you change your heart from an ordinary believer to one of those elect believers, then of course the way you experience God, the way you talk to Him, the way He talks to you is completely different. It changes completely. Yeah, these were called kahin, and of course this word is used in the Quran very much because, as I said, the first thing which usually came to the mind of everyone was that this man is a kahin, someone who is in contact with jinn, and these jinn bring him news from the heavens. Of course, this sort of contact between human being and jinn is not cut off completely. We see even in our time people have some contact with jinn. They sometimes possess jinn, they are sometimes possessed by jinn, and this business goes on and on until the day of judgment it will go. What was cut off was that sort of news which the jinn brought for people, for these sorcerers. And this is something which is mentioned in the Quran, that by the revelation given to the Prophet, this sort of relationship between human being and jinn was cut off, because the source of knowledge of jinn was cut off. In a sense, the doors of heaven were not tight enough before that. People, when Allah communicated with the angels, these jinn could hear something, could sense something of it. And of course, they couldn't receive anything directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They couldn't receive a revelation from Allah, but they were created in a way that when revelation came to angels, not only angels of revelation, the angels who are doing things in this world, when the orders came, what should be done, for example, what will happen in the next century, when these orders were given to the angels, they could eavesdrop and listen what is decreed by Allah, and then they could bring these news to those kahins. And therefore these kahins had very high position. Usually every king had a kahin with him, every chieftain of every tribe had a kahin with him, telling them what should be done, what shouldn't be done, how they should decide about things. Because of that, of course, 50% of it was true, 50% was just guesswork, speculation. The Quran says that, as mentioned by our brother in Surah Jinn, وَإِنَّا كُنَّا نَقْعُدُ مِنْهَا مَقَاعِدَ لِلسَّمْعِ. We were sitting in some places, of course this shouldn't be physical places, in those areas where this communication could be heard, could be overheard by us. And then we brought the news to people. And now what has happened, we don't know what has happened. فَمَنْ يَسْتَمِعِ الْآنِ يَجِدْ لَهُ شِهَابًا رَصَدًا. Any one of us listening now, then we are hit by something which we are killed. And وَإِنَّا لَا نَدْرِي أَشَرٌ أُرِيدَ بِمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ أَمْ أَرَادَ بِهِمْ رَبُّهُمْ رَشَدًا. We don't know if this is good for the people of the earth, for human beings, or it's bad. We don't know what has been decided by Allah. Is it because of a guidance coming, or is it because the end of world is coming? We don't know what has happened. And that was the end of this business of sorcery and kahins listening to jinns. Of course, there are other sources that people can get some sense of future, and that's why still we have these people among us who tell us about our future and these things. There are other sources for it, but that source was completely closed.
Any questions on the lady side? So.
I have two questions. One you've sort of answered just now. The first question is, if we do not accept the common story about how the Prophet received revelation, how has it become so prevalent in the Sunni community that the Prophet was scared and he had to be wrapped in a blanket? And the second question is relating to people who nowadays claim that, you know, they are mediums, they have messages from the dead, and although this is prohibited for us, black magic. Is there actually some reality in this?
Well, why is so prevalent? Because it's the first hadith mentioned in Bukhari, Babu Bad al-Wahi, in Sahih al-Bukhari, this is mentioned, and then it has been also mentioned with different versions in other books as well, like for example in Ibn Hisham, in At-Tabari. So it has been a common knowledge accepted by all Sunni scholars because of being in those very, very important books. And then certainly because we usually get the seerah of the Prophet from those books, even in our Shia community, it has become something prevalent among Shias as well. While of course we have somehow neglected traditions coming from imams who very categorically deny this, and they say this is completely untrue. It was not like this. Prophet was completely composed when he received that revelation. Of course, he might have fell ill because, of course, still the physical structure of the Prophet's body was not that strong and used to this type of contact with Jibreel, and therefore it would have been possible that he might have fallen ill after the first revelation, but it didn't have anything spiritually annoying in it. It was filled with composure and sakina and these things. This is how our traditions, of course, put it. About black magic, of course, black magic is completely different from this sorcery and receiving news. It's acts done by evil powers of this world, not news given. And as I said, the source of knowing the future is not limited, although that source was the most important source and the most clear source for kahins, for sorcerers. But still there are other sources that human beings, by probably still being in touch with some souls, jinns, or even through looking into your face, looking into your palm, or even by, say, for example, different source of geomancy, for example, these things, they can tell about the future. This is not something which is completely uprooted. This is something which is in nature of human beings, that some of them can do this. And of course, when this door is open, because it's an unseen world, then the door is open for all sorts of cheatings, deceptions, false claims, and all these things, which makes that type of business quite unsafe and unreliable, and something which really we shouldn't go about.
How do we Shias explain Surah Muzammil and Surah Mudaththir?
As I said, the beginning of revelation was hard for the prophets, and it might have, even when Prophet received revelation for quite some time, when direct revelation came from God without mediation of Jibreel, Prophet fell ill. It was physically difficult for the Prophet to receive that sort of a spiritual encounter. So the reason is that, yes, of course, that encounter physically was not something that Prophet was used to. And that's why he fell ill, but not spiritually, as I mentioned.
Sheikh, some scientists claim that whether you are evil or good is inherited, in a sense that it depends on how you are born. And what they claim is when people have serious head injuries, there is a change of personality. An evil man may become a good man. How do we explain that?
Well, first of all, this is something which is not proved, that just by an injury an evil man could become a good man, or they might lose their senses, but changing attitude is something which we have to really see the proof for it. However, yes, of course, physical and genetic structure of every human being has some sort of share in their attitudes. Some people are by nature very angry, and you cannot then judge them with all those traditions which say anger is a bad thing. It's in their nature. Some people by their nature are very composed, are very tranquil, in the sense they would not become angry very easily. What is important is that with all these different natures, different tastes, different attitudes, Allah says there is a certain minimum requirement which I want from every one of you. Of course, some of you might be better off than others. Then the judgment is according to the platform on which you stand, genetically, historically, culturally, in terms of your family. All these will be taken into account, and then, of course, the judgment would be passed. And that's why we should not judge each other. We really don't know about our past, the past history, or even the genetic history, the physical construction, and all these things which have a say. As we have in Surah Anbiya, وَلَا يُكَلَّفُ نَفْسٌ إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا, no man is being imposed by a taklif more than what they can bear. وَلَدَيْنَا كِتَابٌ, and we have a book for every human being, يَنْتِقُ بِالْحَقِّ, which speaks the truth about every single individual human being. وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ, and they would not be harmed. Now, of course, trying to find instances where we can say, yes, it was due to some physical thing, or, for example, if you make a brain surgery, you can change the taste of people. Yes, this is possible, of course. We can do that. But again, then we are talking about two different individuals which are going to be judged differently.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaykum salam.
Sheikh, did Nabi Musa also suffer the physical strain of speaking directly with Allah? Because we don't hear anything about this.
Well, because that revelation was completely different. He just heard the sound. He did not encounter any angel. But when Allah manifested himself to the mountain, Nabi Musa, kharra Musa sa'iqa, fell unconscious. There are different things, because human body, even when we go to paradise, our bodies should be prepared for different levels of manifestation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the case with our Prophet. At the beginning, it was more difficult for him to receive revelation, even to encounter with Jibreel. Gradually, when he got used to it, it became easier and easier for him. And it's like every human being encountering a new experience. At the beginning, it might be difficult, or it might be very exciting. But gradually, we find ourselves home with it. And this is what happens with revelation as well.
Sheikh, we discussed that this is a warning for the muttaqi. Although we have in the past discussed about definitions of muttaqi and who are muttaqi, but in this context, we see that, or we feel that sometimes even the persons who are non-Muslims, they become Muslims. Does it mean that when they are non-Muslims, in their lifetime or in the course of life, they are somehow on some kind of a rung of being a muttaqi, and hence then they start coming towards Islam? Or, I mean, what is the definition of being a muttaqi? Does it mean that any person who believes in some kind of a supernatural power is on some kind of level of being muttaqi?
No, anyone who wants to be good. Certainly, when Prophet, peace be on him, brought his message, there was no Muslim in the world. And all those who believed in him, well, the overwhelming majority of those who believed in him were polytheists, were mushrik. They were worshipping idols. Or they did not probably believe in any idol, as we have about Abu Dhar, that since childhood he did not believe in any idol, he did not worship any idol. Yes, of course, the guidance comes for those who are not Muslims. Now, of course, we have a big Muslim community, and Muslims give birth to Muslims, and we are Muslims by birth. But it doesn't make any difference. Even a Muslim by birth, when they come to the age of maturity, they have to decide for themselves. And that's why we don't have much control over our children, do we? I mean, our children really decide for themselves what they want to be, whether they want to go this path or any other path. And therefore, that hudan lil muttaqin at the beginning is those muttaqin who want to be good, but they don't have an instruction for it, and this is the instruction.
Are there any questions on the ladies' side? Okay, we'll have one last question from Haydar.
Sorry, one last thing. This thing to do with the jinn. In Surah Jinn it says, قُلْ أُوحِيَ إِلَيَّ أَنَّهُ اسْتَمَعَ نَفَرٌ مِنَ الْجِنِّ. Is this related to the same listening, or is it different listening altogether?
Which listening?
You know, when they used to sit on the seats and listen to the other messages.
No. That's أُوحِيَ أَنَّهُ اسْتَمَعَ نَفَرٌ مِنَ الْجِنِّ. When Prophet was reciting the Quran, they came and listened to.
So that's totally separate. That's talking to the
Completely different from heavenly eavesdropping. Yeah.
Okay, we'll have one last question from Nizar uncle.
I'm happy for you not to answer this question today, but something for you to think about, and at an appropriate time give us the answer. This is something that's bugging me for a long time, and particularly since these days I do roam around with a lot of Ahl Sunnah brothers and sisters. If you can imagine for one short while that you are someone who is about to convert into Islam yourself, you have done the research, you have read, understood Shiism and the other side as well, and you are in the middle wanting to make a decision which Islam you're going to follow. I want you to tell me 2 to 3 things that attracts you definitely towards Sunnism, 2 to 3 things that distracts you because you just don't like that context, that interpretation. And similarly on the Shia side, I know it probably is a lecture on its own, but I would love to hear from you. As an independent person, you have to make a decision which way to go. What is attracting you towards that? What's attracting you towards that? What's distracting you towards one? What's distracting you towards the other?
Yeah.
Without making a final decision.
Okay. I think the first thing which certainly would strike me is the people who preach Shiism or Sunnism. I look at them to see which one is better. No. Just now, the people who preach Shiism, what is their practice, how they behave, how good they are to me. And the people who preach Sunnism, how they behave, how good they are to me. It's really, really impossible for a newly convert to know the depth of these very, very deeply historical separations and distinctions. Just what would be easier, of course, it is impossible for us now to put ourselves in place of a person who wants to convert to Islam, but we can put ourselves in place of a person who wants to convert to Christianity. Now, really, can we make a sound judgment whether we should become a Catholic or a Protestant or these very, very different divisions of Protestant church and Catholic church? It is really, really not possible. The first thing which might attract a person is the personality of Jesus Christ first. And then what is preached about him, love, to be humane, to love everyone, to try to help everyone. These are very, very attracting messages. Now, when it comes to whether I want to choose to be a Protestant or a Catholic, it is impossible for me to make a sound judgment because these are very, very deep type of divisions which could not be understood at the beginning by a Muslim or by anyone who wants to convert to Christianity. What would really convert me to Protestantism or Catholicism is, in the first place, the people who have met me. Who has caught me first or who has hunted me first would be the person who takes me to his own faith. Now, then gradually it becomes an issue. At the beginning, it's not an issue. I think for no convert it would be an issue to become a Shia or a Sunni, because what's the difference? They cannot see the difference. Gradually, when they come to the faith and they become familiarized with discussions between Shias and Sunnis, then they might say, okay, now I'm a Shia or I'm a Sunni. Am I on the right? I have changed my religion, I have come to a new religion. Now here I see that, again, there are divisions. What should I do? Which way should go? Then these discussions come. And of course, I don't think we Shias are very good in convincing other people to become Shias, because we really ourselves don't have that type of understanding of deeply knowing the Shiite faith, except some very superficial things. And therefore, a convert converting to Islam gets their reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no matter whether they become Shias or Sunnis. And then it's our duty to try to be able to explain ourselves, or to express ourselves in the most reasonable manner.
You haven't answered my question, but I'm happy to leave it as it is.
No, I said it's impossible to answer your question.
No, but look, I really feel that you may be able to just give me some hints. You are at a fantastic advantage compared to myself in the vast knowledge that you have about both. You have read about the Sunni books, you have quoted many a times of all their books, and you have read about Shiism as well. And I really want you to sit on the fence for a short while and tell me concepts, historical concepts that attract you towards one side or the other, and similarly major issues that distract you from one side or the other.
Okay, maybe we have to put a seminar about that, and inshallah we discuss it there. It's a very good topic for a seminar, I think. And it's very difficult to be fair here, very difficult to be an independent...
And that's in seminar we should probably get one Sunni alim as well, who has read about Shiism.
Yeah.
Who has actually read and researched about Shiism, and ask him to answer the same questions as well.
And probably a convert from Sunnism to Shiism, and a convert from Shiism to Sunnism.
Okay, that would be fantastic.
So. And so I leave it in your hands to organize this seminar.
Modi Savirji, I know, can organize such a seminar.
Yeah.
And she's going to, Modi said isn't listening, she's talking. She's one person capable of organizing such seminar. Inshallah, one day here during the summer months. Maybe not.
Apparently she's not interested.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll stop there. Salawat.
Thank you. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.